All right. I am here with Andrew Amann, who recently got micro-acquired, and I'm super excited for this one because his name is also Andrew. Andrew, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Good to see you again, Andrew.
So for those listening that don't know you or the studio that you own, do you want to give just a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure. So my name is Andrew Amann. I'm the CEO of 923 Venture Studio. We build mobile apps for entrepreneurs and tech brands, and we've been doing it for 11 years now. And we build both in the startup space. We have 14 startups ourselves, but we also build for clients like an agency would build mobile and web apps.
These are native applications, correct? iPhone, Android.
We have dove into the hybrid world and we'll never go back. We only release native Android and iPhone and then web apps as well. We do a lot of CRMs and web applications.
Nice. We were talking before this and, I was deep in mobile apps. We would only do native. We got stuck in native because we started with iPhone apps and then we had to go over to Android. So we had two separate teams, an iPhone app and an Android team. Don't recommend it. Do not do it. So that's
we love it. So we love the two divisions because when the iPhone updates and their libraries change, it's much easier to adapt to the libraries. The hybrid apps we have tried to build have never gone well on either the updates, the libraries always change, or it actually costs more in the long run to build a hybrid app. So we highly recommend doing native Android, native iPhone. And we do have two teams like that.
Oh, I thought I misheard you. I thought you said you do hybrid. We never,
No.
yeah, we always did native. Just the quality is better, but there is just like that extra. It'd be nice to just make a feature once and then have it on both platforms. But anyway, let's get to the good stuff. So, White Label Event App was recently acquired. What did it do? What problem was it solving? Tell me about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we are a venture studio, so we build our own startups. And at the time, we were building for ourselves. And one of the ideas that we had was trying to solve going to festivals. At the time, it's 2019 when we started building this product. And the festival application space was very sparse. The applications that existed really didn't have the ability to go offline. And if you've been to a festival before, one of the hardest things is there's 20,000, 30,000, sometimes 90,000 people in one location, and the internet just does not work. So all of these websites and like simple applications that marketing teams are putting out did not have the capability of offline downloads, right? Without like trying to download the website yourself. So we had the idea of trying to build an app that was dedicated to be offline first. And then secondly, location services still work after you've downloaded the content. You don't need the internet. You can just use the GPS radio in your phone. And so you could still locate the bathroom, locate the stages, find out who's playing. Because all the data was offline, you could press a button and be located of where you are and where you want to get to. So those are the two main features that we were trying to sell. We built it in 2019. We hired a CEO in early 2020. We were set to release at the beginning of 2020. We released on March 1st, 2020. And we had a few customers lined up and we immediately pressed return and returned all their money. So it did not work because of the situation we released it.
It's so crazy just how timing can play out with startups. But it sounds like, something good came out of it. At least you were able to find a buyer for that. But man, that timing, I feel for you.
There was, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
You go. Sorry.
I was just about to say as soon as it happened, we didn't even talk to our customers. We just pressed return and said, I'm sorry. Because you felt so bad for these guys who've been planned for a festival for 6 months, a year, and they had set up like us with the app. They had planned all the events and they just were heartbroken, because there was no way people were attending in March of 2020.
Yeah, I remember at that time we had a lot of travel, hotel, basically anything related to, events. Revenue was literally, it wasn't a slow decline. It was just a drop. It was, so, a lot pulled through. We ended up usually not listing some of them because we were just saying like, just hang in there. Like it'll get better. Yeah. For a lot it did. And then for some, they found like a soft landing. Like it sounds like you did. Yeah. And I'd love to get into that. So I think the app's great. It makes a ton of sense. I've been to, festivals myself and I always download the app and stuff like that. So clear need there. So you list on MicroQuart. Tell me about how that experience went. how many buyers reached out? Maybe we can start there and then dive into some of the other details.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, I think the number of buyers was about 20 that had reached out and shown interest. And there was, in the end, there was probably three serious buyers that not only wanted to use the application but wanted to build it into something larger that they were trying to be a part of. Whether it was a festival app for a gaming company or like different event spaces, they were trying to determine how to utilize the services of organizing and setting up location-based objects, and then setting a schedule to those location-based objects, like a festival would. But you could also imagine a conference could use it. If you're doing a football game or a large gathering of people where you're trying to organize people at a specific time with different things happening within an area, even like a wedding, you can utilize these types of services. So a lot of the buyers had bigger visions for it. We had proposed it we had released in March of 2020. We were building it. We're a startup. We had our opportunities to use our developers and continue to use the developers through all the bugs. So it's kind of like a buy as is. And it was a startup, right? It had the resources, it had the assets that was able to be purchased. And we were still trying to figure it out ourselves. Like, what is the marketing play? What is the sales play? And what are the main features we're going to have to build? So on MicroAcquire, when we decided to list it there, the buyers, they had the ideas of like, all right, if this is the base bone or like the backbone of my main goal, we can utilize these services. There was one of the three serious buyers that wanted to use it in isolation. And I quickly was like, it's not going to work for you. You really need to have a team behind this. You need to market it, and you actually need to build for future. And so that's where, when the final buyer came in, he knew he had a bigger vision for it than just the app as it is today, or as it was in 2020.
Nice. Is your team still maintaining technical upgrades and stuff on the application?
So we helped him through the first release of the festival that the person that had purchased from us in 2020 still ran a festival in 2022. We supported that festival. We helped get that set up. We also helped them release it to the App Store, both Android and iPhone. So we assisted the buyer in getting that to over the goal line, basically, even after the purchase, just to make sure it went smoothly, because we had promised that service.
That's awesome. Have you ever thought about, this is kind of a left field question, but like just building applications and then selling them based on, because I could see like a do-yourself event builder app company being made out of this application by the sounds of it. Like, have you ever thought about that? Just given like maybe you create a few apps and they're doing well, but you find someone with bigger ambitions, because you could sell it and then you could be the agency that supports it too. Have you ever thought about that?
Yeah, so we have 14 startups that we've built over the course of our lifetime. And we have 3 different cohorts that we've gone through. At first, like where the festival app came from was our first cohort, where we were trying to do exactly like you said, build an application that we could operate as an agency and find enough people to use the application to monetize a future return. The challenge with that is the funnel. Like, we're a bootstrapped agency, right? So the funnel, we're not funded by anything besides our clients, and the money that was coming in needed to be supported by the team to fund the startup itself. And if you had venture backing, you could do that more often. But I really think the challenge is finding enough marketing and sales resources from your client profits to push that marketing forward. And as you know, with any startup, that's 90% of where the money goes. That's 90% of like where the focus is getting over that hurdle of product adoption and product market fit. And so that first cohort really didn't do well, in the sense that we just didn't have enough resources from a bootstrap company to support the sales and marketing of really selling that idea, even though we also believed that was a good path forward.
Nice. Yeah, 14 startups is a lot. So especially for a bootstrap agency. So or excuse me, ventures. That's pretty damn impressive.
Thank you.
So I guess moving back to the sales. So you decide on, you meet a buyer, 3 of them, they seem but all qualified. What made you sell to this particular buyer? Is there anything that they did that stood out? Did they offer favorable terms? Did you guys just mesh right? Like what kind of made you say, hey, this is like the correct buyer for this application?
Yeah, and when you have 3, you're kind of best of the world, right? You try to pick the best of the 3. So you want to work with all 3, obviously, to make sure you're finding someone that has the capital and has the vision for it. but this specific buyer ideally would have been a perfect fit, even if I had 20 interested parties. And the reason was he knew that this app had the bare bones to grow to something larger. They were also more familiar with the Web3 space, the crypto space. He wanted to add some wallet capabilities to it, so there would be more security on it. And also some of the events that they had envisioned were in conference buildings that had multiple floors. And so when they provided, maybe it was a crypto conference or anything like that, you could really see this app fitting in to the way he wanted to utilize event services. And so I think that tipped the scale in us to say, look, like we also can build with you. We can build products, we can develop resource, like we can be the feature set of building we can be the development team to build additional features. And I think that, that marriage of need for product and us having the resources of continuing to build what was necessary allowed us to be just continuing the conversation until the acquisition went through.
That's awesome. I love how you were able to sell the app and then still be available to, again, maintain the app, make improvements, fix bugs, upload it to the app store. That's a huge just an advantage compared to a lot of other sellers. Because as a buyer, you don't want to buy an application and then the source code is messy and then you have to go find another engineer. So just having someone available for any sort of fixes and upgrades. So that's awesome that you were able to do that. In terms of due diligence, how did that go? It's a mobile application. I imagine it was maybe a code review, and then you transferred the app into maybe a new developer account, or he or she registered a developer account. Can you walk me through that a little bit?
Sure. So whenever you transfer, we had, I guess the way to explain it is most mobile apps have a backend that needs to be supported typically on the web, right? And then you have the servers and the infrastructure behind that. But this application specifically had a web application, which we call the admin portal, that allowed you to set up an event where both mobile apps for that event was tied to that specific instance of the admin portal. So the idea was each event or each festival that you operated would have its own app, and it would be named that festival's name. And then in the admin portal itself, you would specify which admin, like what the event name was, and you would set it up on the admin portal. So the due diligence was creating an event, having him log in and create his own event, move the stage around, move the bathroom rooms around. One of the cool features was taking a map and drawing like an illustration on top of the map of exactly hand drawn. Like if you've gone to a festival, somebody like hand draws the bathroom and then a few trees. So he was able to test all of that through the admin portal. And then like if it was me, when we were testing for our events, I would actually run out to the actual festival, call my developer and be like, I'm running 10 feet. I've run 30 feet this way, and see if it would follow me on the map. I'm not sure if he specifically did that location testing, but because you have this live app that was supposed to work for festivals in 2020, he had the capability of logging into the admin portal, downloading the app, and seeing the interactions between the app and the festival. From a code standpoint, we had told him we were going to get it to production. And so for that first festival that happened it happened this year in 2022, we supported that all the way through. So there wasn't any code review necessarily, but for the most part, he was able to test and review and see the application in action from his computer before purchasing.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's pretty typical with pretty much all the buyers I talk to, in terms of obviously technical due diligence is extremely important, but also just testing just do a demo of the application, like sign up. Right. Could be a SaaS app or e-commerce store, order the product, SaaS application, go through the user flow, see all the email drip, just so you can get an understanding of, how built out this product is. So that's exactly what I would have done. So that's awesome. I like that drawing feature idea too. That's slick. So moving over to go ahead.
I was just going to say that drawing feature could be a product on its own. The way that it worked is we would hire an illustrator, and we had an illustrator on our team that would draw the festival map. And if you've ever read like Paper Towns, it's a book about how subway drawers you can't have turns in subways. You have to have like 90-degree turns. And so when you see the subway of New York City, it's easy because it's a grid. But in Boston, it's like a 90-degree turn first. It's not actually like that. It like weaves and turns. So a festival does the same thing, and everything's not to proportion, but you could stretch and skew it onto a map, and you would find a river and you trace along the river, and the illustration would drop over the map. And then when you downloaded the map on the phone, as soon as you got to where the festival location is, the actual Google Maps on your phone would convert to this illustrated image that you're kind of walking inside of. So you like
Oh,
bump into
dang.
the stage. It was like so cool. It's like a product in itself, and it's one of the coolest features we had on that.
That's awesome. Dang.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could build that with
Yeah.
iOS, but I haven't, like I told you, I haven't built a mobile app in a long time. But that's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
moving over towards transition. It sounds like that was pretty easy too. Just basically moved over the code base, took it to production.
Mhm.
How did that process go?
Yeah, with Google and Android, he would have to sign up for an account. I'm sorry, with Google and iPhone, he would sign up for an Google Play Store and an iTunes App Store account, and the apps were transferred into those accounts that he owns. And so from there on out, he owns the code base, he owns the app that's built inside of it. Then we would transfer the repository of the admin portal to one of his servers and give him the keys to the credit card. And he would then own the AWS that supported the infrastructure of the admin portal. And at that point, he can own and operate the entire application.
That's so smart. So did you have this application hosted in a different AWS environment?
Maybe not at the time, but by the time the purchase was complete, yes.
Nice. Yeah, I hear, from time to time, some people will have a bunch of different applications in one AWS
Yeah.
instance, and they got to pull it out, put it into something new. But just having it
Yeah.
in just a singular AWS account with nothing else in it, you can kind of just drop the username and password and make
Yep.
it easier for everybody.
Yep.
I guess my next question would just be in terms of, so you went through due diligence, transfer, and then you're pretty much done with everything. But how's the relationship with the buyer at this point? Are you pretty much continuing to build events for this buyer, or has this person taken over the app and you're on to new things?
Yeah, we helped them release that first one. It was a festival out in Seattle, and we haven't heard back of how it went yet. But the relationship, it's seemingly good. We haven't heard anything negative. It's one of those things that I think we made the transaction, we made the transition, and now he's off to either growing that business. I've been trying to follow along to see if they're making anything public, and I haven't seen anything specifically, but I do know that they're in the event space. They're selling all the time to events, and maybe this is part of their package. Maybe it's an internal thing that he's now figured out how to redeploy over and over again. And I just haven't been privy enough to understand exactly where this product is going in the future. But I do know it was capable of running that first event.
This sounds so smooth. I'm struggling to think of more questions because most of the businesses that we sell are SaaS companies, e-commerce companies.
Yep.
So there's a lot of moving pieces. But with mobile apps, it just sounds like upload into the other developer account. The backend services are transferred over. So it sounds like everything went smooth end to end. Is that correct to say?
Yeah, and it went very smooth. And I think MicroAcquire made it super easy because you matched us, right? Like the service matched us. And then from there, he had more of the knowledge of how to purchase products. So he had the paperwork, he had the due diligence stuff, he had the all the term sheets all ready to go, right? Whereas on our side, we've only sold 2 apps out of our 14. And the first one was like an acqui-acquire. It was new to us of how to approach selling an asset like this. And it was a very simple piece of paper. I think it was like 4 or 5 pages too. We had simplified it immensely by the time we got to the term sheet. But I think, from our standpoint, we were less attached to it because there was we didn't have customers. And for us to grow that product, we needed to hire sales and marketing. For him, he saw it as I have the sales and marketing and I need the product. And so it's almost like an easy transfer because it's not about the price and it's not about, hey, this is such a large acquisition that we need to figure out, 30% of this or 10% of this. And if this doesn't work, we're going to knock this price down a little bit. It wasn't that high of a price that allowed us to get into those arguments. I think we positioned it as a way that, look, we were about to release this in 2020. We were really excited. We had these festivals lined up. They were excited about it. And COVID happened. And so we haven't touched it. And now people are contacting us again. We have the #1 spot for white label festival app on Google. And we've maintained that. It's just that nobody's been searching white label festival apps since 2020. And so now in 2022, the leads started picking up and I'm like, I don't have time to build this, but who does? And he did. And I think that's why it was such an easy transition because we were willing to give up a resource that had potential and he was willing to accept a resource and put the work in to give it that potential. So that's why I think it was more of a match of here's an, like, it's almost like a car. Like, I love the car. Know that it drives great. I just need someone to like love it, right, and care for
And you got 14 other cars too. So getting one, I think was
yeah,
really helpful. I guess
yeah, yeah.
final question would be based on just like your experience selling this application, for those listening, if you had to give just any advice when maybe they're thinking about selling a mobile application specifically, or interacting with buyers, what's like maybe the top three tips you would give other founders on how to position themselves to get acquired?
Yeah, I think the first one would be, we are a development agency, so it's different for us in a sense that we have the resources at our disposal to assist the customer or the buyer when needed. But I would say the first tip would be the sale is not the end. And you need to promise like that the app is supposed to do specific things, but you also like it's an as is app, right? Like any purchase, I imagine on Micro Acquire at a certain point becomes as is. Like we can only support what currently is there today. So prior to the sale, the first tip is basically make sure the app is in a position that can be transferred. Put it in its own AWS account, as we talked about. Make sure Apple and Google can be transferred very easily. And make sure you have those developer resources ready to go while this acquisition is happening, because they're going to be needing to do a few things. I mean, I think we spent almost 100 hours of our own time just getting the application ready for the transfer. And that is something that maybe you're not prepared for or you're not ready for. And maybe you're not funding for if you're a SaaS company and you have to keep on your contractors or your development team a little longer, like really expect to keep them on through the acquisition and not like cut them before thinking everything's going to go smoothly. I think that's an important tip to understand.
Nice. I love that. Yeah. Just again, going back to how important the transfer is in terms of, just knowing that if something breaks or if you want to add an additional feature, just having the previous owner available is massive. Even if it's just for a short period of time, even if it's just to get it active to the point where you got it to the first festival, that's huge. So well done and congrats.
Thank you. No, thank you for providing the service that you do. I've been following you for a long time, and I think this is what's needed from entrepreneurship, because we didn't have to get a broker. We didn't have to pay 15% of the sale price, right? We really utilized your services, I think, exactly as they're supposed to be to match buyers and sellers. And it was a perfect candidate. We were a perfect candidate for that.
Right on. Well, I wish I could take more credit, but I mean, you found the buyer and you did, all the work. So congrats to you. I just have two more, just quick random questions. I always just like to kind of throw in here. What's like a favorite book or podcast you'd recommend to entrepreneurs?
Sure. So right now I'm reading Mastery, and usually I don't recommend a book that I'm currently reading because I haven't fully finished it yet. But Mastery by Robert Greene, halfway through, it is exactly what I try to preach when I teach mentors or younger kids that are going into entrepreneurship about being an apprentice first and putting your time in day after day after day until you can master something and then become a teacher. But that book is really well written, and Robert Greene is a good author to get a series of books from. He's written 21 Laws of Power, or what is it, 49 Laws of Power, or something like that. But yeah, that's a good book.
I've read
podcast.
That make you evil. Like, sorry, I was just saying. I'll definitely check out Mastery because I've read the 49 Ways of Power or something, and I was just saying that book can kind of make you evil if you like take it too seriously.
Yeah, it's there's as you get to the end of that too, the last like 7 or 8, you feel like guilty that that's how people gain power. And you're like, I know the trick. And once you know the tricks, then you see it in real life. And yeah, I completely.
All right. What about podcasts?
The Knowledge Project is my go-to. I will sit down with a notebook and listen to the Knowledge Project. It is a great way to see an author or read about an author, look them up on Knowledge Project and get a shortcut. It's like a cliff notes of how somebody thinks about a book that they wrote. And so each episode is really well done, really in depth, and Shane does a really good job listening to their previous stories and like really harnessing out like actionable items that entrepreneurs can take. So the Knowledge Project is my go-to.
Nice. I've never heard of that podcast, so I will check that one out too. So this next question I've never asked anyone, but given you're in mobile app development, what's your favorite mobile app that you've ever seen developed? What do you think is they nailed the user experience, or it's your personal favorite? What's like an app that you just look at and say they just nailed every point of this?
Yeah, I'll give you a few. The team at Spotify, I follow them specifically. The features that they put out are revolutionary, and they end up being industry leaders in a lot of areas. And it's very minor things. They were the first ones to put the bottom bar on iOS, and everybody followed suit. And this was like 2016, 2017. But the way that they organize massive amounts of data and the time they put into each feature on Spotify, it's really interesting to follow. Even they have these scanning tools, they have these little audio listening tools and music lyrics that are abnormal compared to app development, but very natural for your thumb swiping. So Spotify's team, design-wise, is one of the best. The other one that I always kind of get addicted to is Mile IQ, and it's an independent app. It tracks your expenses of how much you drive automatically with GPS, but they have this really clever card system, and Zero does it too a little bit, but not as good because Zero's app is absolutely horrible. But Mile IQ is like peaceful organization of tasks, which in this case is business driving versus personal driving. And their UI is really well done. So those are the two that just came to mind quickly. I'm a huge Google fan, so Material 3 and the new Android and the new like Android 13, they've done a really great job with the settings and the menu options with the big buttons. So I would say that. And then I guess the last thing I'll say is if you look at the mobile app landscape in the last 6 or 7 years, we're all starting to copy Windows operating system, their phone, and the way they organize the horizontal scrolls. So a lot of things that they introduced to the app world, because they came from scratch, right, in 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
A lot of the menu options are actually being copied from that, especially iOS. So it's fun to see that coming back as well. And iOS music is a perfect candidate that looks exactly like the Windows Phone music did a few years.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I totally agree on Spotify's app. Now that you mentioned it, we used to always study the Starbucks app. I don't know why. Just for good and bad, their ordering experience is really good, but it also feels like every department in that company just shoved what they wanted in the app. But anyways, really appreciate you joining the podcast and just sharing this story. This has been awesome, Andrew. If people want to get a hold of you and learn more about your venture studio, maybe have a mobile app created by your team, how could they get a hold of you?
Sure. So I'm very active on Twitter, Andrew Amann, Amann. So it's adding, and is it still called Twitter nowadays? I don't know if we're changing the name of that too. So hopefully,
by the time it comes out, it might be something else.
Yeah. For the people listening, like we're 2 days into Elon purchasing Twitter, so all these changes are coming. So if it's still the same blue bird, then that's where you can find my username. And I don't have a blue check mark yet, but maybe I'll buy one by that time.
Yeah. So I'll put that in show notes.
Yeah, thank you. And then, LinkedIn, same thing, just Andrew Amann. And our company is 923 Venture Studio. We either do it with the numbers 923 or spell it out 9. So that's where you can find me. And I appreciate everyone listening to this. And thank you, Andrew, for having me on. It's a total pleasure to see you grow and succeed in this space. And I like what you're doing with bootstrapper.com too. It's a very humbling and honest way that I think we're all following you is trying to figure out also how to be bootstrappers, and having a place that we can call home is great. So I appreciate you setting both MicroAcquire up and that website.
Thanks, Andrew. I appreciate that. We'll end on that note, and I'm rooting for you, man. So best of luck, and I'm sure I'll be chatting with you again soon.
Sounds great. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Cheers.